to be safe and with a nice family, and I was going to go to school and I was going to learn English, and I did all that. Initially, when the war started, which was a month after I'd arrived there, it started on September 3, 1939, and I had arrived on August 2, so exactly a month later. I went to school. I went to second grade or whichever, third grade. They put me in third grade because it was September, so the beginning of the school year. And I learned English very quickly. And then the war started, and so everybody was worried. We lived near Manchester, that there would be a lot of bombing at the beginning of the war. So we were evacuated. And that was, at that time, I could also already speak English. And there were two words, a refugee and an evacuee. And I was desperately wishing I could be an evacuee, because refugees were the foreigners. And even among all the British, they were good, they were kind, but they didn't like foreigners. My own stepmother, she hated foreigners. She told me that. There was something I didn't tell you at the very beginning. I will in a minute. You get rid of these comments. And the evacuees, these were children from London whose parents had sent them on trains, and the trains would stop in various places that they considered to be safe and that wouldn't be bombed, and those were the evacuees. So Harry, my little brother, and I were evacuated, but I was still a refugee, which was a bad sign, or a bad word, to a little village in what is now Cumberland. And there was a school there. At first it was just a big, large, beautiful country house that was run by Quakers. Have you heard of Quakers? They were very good people. They got the Nobel Prize after the war, 1948, for all they did for people who were being tortured and discriminated against by the Nazis. So this big house was run by Quakers, and they turned it into a school. And children could go there. They didn't have enough room for parents as well, but parents could bring the children there. We were supposed to be safe there in this gorgeous, beautiful little village from the bombs. And we got there very shortly after the war started, and I became hysterical because the parents were going to leave us there to go to school, and then they would come and visit. It would be like a boarding school. I couldn't face that. So, because I didn't want another what's the word? Departure, I suppose, from now my foster parents. I couldn't. So they decided that the mother would stay there somewhere in the village, and we would go to school. My little brother and I would go to school there, but at least she would be with us. I had a room prepared, etc., and they were trying to be very nice and very kind. I was crying desperately, of course. I was homesick and all of the above. And that very first night, my Uncle Harry, the father, first I called them Uncle and Auntie, and later I called them Mom and Dad. I was there for 7 years, But later that evening, that very first evening, they had invited three or four young men. They were all about 19 or 20 years old, and they came to say hello to me. And they could speak German and Czech. Those were my two languages. And they had come, in fact, from Central Europe as refugees. And they were living living in a hotel that they had turned into something like a institution or something. But these young men from Central Europe, so they were refugees. And they were very nice to me, and they were able to speak my language, so the family was happy that at least I had someone whom I could talk to. And they came once or twice more, and then a third time they were supposed to come. I was already going to school, to play one evening with me or with both of us, and they were very kind. And they didn't come. And so I wanted to know, where are they, and why didn't they let us know they weren't coming? I was looking forward to being able to talk to someone in my own language. And then we learned that they had been deported, and you may have heard that young people who had come from Central Europe, and maybe from Germany and some from Czechoslovakia and around Hungary, the other countries, the British were worried that they could be spies, or they could at least be in favor of the Nazis, and so they deported them and concentrated them. It was something like the Japanese population here in California at the beginning of the war here in America, because they didn't trust them. They were worried that they would be secret spies. And so they were these young men who were living around Manchester, where we were deported to the Isle of Man, which is it belongs to Britain, and a few of them were sent to Australia, and there were many. It was a big action, lots of people, young men, and mostly men, but families too, scientists, musicians, artists. They were all very valuable people who had been helped, in fact, to get out of under Hitler. And these camps I don't think they lasted very long, but they certainly concentrated them, and they were sort of imprisoned, but then they let them go. So that was an activity by the Brits. I never blamed them, because they weren't ready for a war, and they could have been spies, and maybe some of them were, I don't know. So